Greetings, welcome to Second Breakfast, the most important meal of the day. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jason. Sean, what are we having for second breakfast?
Well, before we can have second breakfast, we need to explain what second breakfast is
Oh,
to
yeah,
these
true.
non-hobbits.
That's true. They don't know about 11 C's or luncheon either.
See, here in the Shire, we have a special time of day called Second Breakfast, and it's where we sit down in front of microphones and we talk about the new Amazon original series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Show has not yet started, so Second Breakfast is a little weird today, but we're just kind of doing a little intro.
Yeah. We
Introduce
get to know
ourselves.
us. We talk about what the show's gonna be about and what we're excited for and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, what I think is nice about this is even if you've never really heard anything Lord of the Rings, you kind of only watched it once, you don't know anything about the books, I think it'll be cool because it's going to be something that you can get into without needing any prior knowledge.
This show is going to be coming out weekly on, I believe, Saturdays. The first week, Amazon is dropping 2 episodes, so I think we'll probably do one on Saturday and then maybe one towards the middle of the week.
Okay.
But normally, you guys come to I don't actually have an Anchor page for you guys yet because you don't get the Anchor page name until you've uploaded an episode. But yeah, I assume it'll be something like anchor.fm/second breakfast.
Something
or just
like
go
that. We'll have it.
That's every Saturday. That's where you're going to be able to find these episodes.
Yeah.
Before we start to talk about this show, I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction as to who we are and our Lord of the Rings background.
Yeah.
I think
that sounds fun.
I have a kind of fun story. But I want to start with you because kind of the idea behind this show as well is that I'm a big fan of the movies, and obviously you're also a big fan of the movies.
Yeah.
But you also know more book stuff as well, and I don't know anything from the books.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you want to start.
I mean, I started with the movies because back when the movies came out, I was in elementary school, and so watched those with my parents and was a huge fan. And then I read The Hobbit in middle school. Really, really liked it. And then I remember going to go see The Lord of the Rings because they were doing another theater run with the director's cut or the extended edition in theaters. And I remember we went to go see it, and it was this theater that was in a mall. And so I'm thinking oh, it's just a rerun. Nothing crazy is gonna happen. It's just a run of the mill. Whatever, right? We go in, and everybody else in the theater besides me and my mom, I'm 13. And everyone else in the theater besides me and my mom are dressed up like orcs and elves, and people had literal real swords in there. I'm how the hell did you get these in, dude? It was so crazy, but it was so cool too, right? Because I was so young at that age when those movies came out, I completely missed that, right? So it was really cool being able to kind of relive an opening night of those movies way later. So yeah, that was really cool, and that's what got me kind of just down the path of wanting to consume anything and everything about the series. And so I immediately went to the library later that week and read The Children of Húrin, and that book is one of the most depressing things ever. It's completely different than Lord of the Rings, but I was still hooked, and also it was a really hard book to read. Thankfully I had a really high reading level even when I was 13, so that was cool.
Yeah, because that's not even the main story, right? That's part of the Silmarillion and all that, so I'm sure that's written in a certain way that isn't as digestible as the main
because
books.
he throws so many different names and places at you that are completely not familiar to me in any way, right? Because it's going from the Third Age to the First Age. There's not really anything to really bridge that gap for you. So you're having to remember all these names, and all of them are so similar because of how names work in the Legendarium, the whole collection of everything. So it was really hard, but it was really worth it. And I even before the show was announced, I would just while I'm working, because I work from home, just listening to all different types of people just, doing a breakdown of a character or like of a time period, and there's so many different really cool YouTube channels that do stuff like that. And so, yeah, I just pretty much consume anything and everything Lord of the Rings. And so I'm excited. I'm somebody who likes the Hobbit movies. I'm somebody who, I just pretty much anything and everything Lord of the Rings, I'm pretty much a fan of it. So I'm excited for the show. I think their marketing team sucks, but that's Amazon. I can't
they
really
don't do a good job for Wheel of Time either.
Yeah, I can't really expect like the marketing people to be, because like when you think about like when the movies came out, like the marketing for that didn't really need to be good, right? So like they just like played it safe, you know what I mean? Like with the old marketing, whereas like nowadays it's like just constant YouTube ads, Twitch ads, like all this stuff everywhere. You got TikTok ads, Instagram ads and stuff. So it's like I can't expect the same level of like love or like even just for like marketing, like interviews and all this stuff. Like not every single person involved with the project's actually going to be super invested in Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? So I give them a bit of a pass, even though a lot of the marketing's been really just straight up cringe. I don't know how else to say it. But yeah, so I'm really excited for the show. And I'm really glad that we both talked each other into doing this podcast.
Yeah,
so.
That's really what happened, isn't it? It's kind of back and forth of like, man, I want to cover this show, but you know what? I don't know if I have the time. And then, Sean, we could cover it. We could do it. It's only 8 episodes. I'm like, oh, there's only 8 episodes. And then it's like,
dude. And then there's 2 to start. Come on.
Yeah. I was really scared when I thought there was going to be 3 to start because that is the Amazon like standard.
Yeah. That's just a lot.
I'm so glad. It's
just literally like a whole nother Lord of the Rings movie, like 3 hours.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. I mean, for real. So I'm actually interested. When you went with your mom to see the movies again, like you were talking about, was that all the movies or was it just?
It was all 3. So like it was like a weekend thing where like
okay,
it was like Friday they did Fellowship, Saturday they did Two Towers, and then Sunday they did Return of the King.
Was this because you said you were like 13 and you and I are around the same age? I think you're just a little bit older than me. Was this around when the first Hobbit movie was coming out?
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Because it's funny. So my experience with Lord of the Rings is obviously growing up like I was born in 99. The first movie comes out in 2001. Like by the time I'm like walking and talking, Lord of the Rings is already a massive part of the pop culture, right?
Right, exactly.
Like beyond just being these books, these movies have made it something so much more. And I'm a massive fantasy fan. I read all sorts of books when I was younger, obviously, younger books like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and Last Apprentice, that kind of stuff. But I haven't read Lord of the Rings, which is actually like it's on my TBR.
Yeah, I have read Lord of the Rings. I guess I forgot to say that. Yeah.
Like I haven't read Lord of the Rings, which is surprising because like I said, I read like the entirety 14 book saga of Wheel of Time. And I feel like if you read that, you can read anything, So I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to Lord of the Rings.
That's really good.
In middle school, I read The Hobbit and I adored The Hobbit. And this was the year that the new movie was coming out. And I had I had knowledge of Lord of the Rings at that point, like existing as a human being, you kind of pick it up.
Right.
But I don't know that I'd ever actually seen. Yeah, I don't know that I'd ever actually seen one of the movies all the way through. And then because The Hobbit was coming out, my local movie theater did a back-to-back showing of all 3 extended editions.
Oh, jeez.
And my friend is a massive Lord of the Rings fan, and his dad took like 4 or 5 of us, and we went on like a Saturday and watched all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, extended editions. And that was my first real exposure that like I was watching it and retaining anything from it,
Yeah. That's so funny. Like as your actual own person, right? Like
Yeah. And that was an insane experience. It was so awesome. It was like from noon to midnight. Like
yeah.
It was It was great.
Literally later tonight, I will be watching at least The Fellowship of the Ring later tonight with one of my friends in a watch party. So
That's awesome.
I'm going to try and talk him into also starting the second movie so then I can drag him back again.
It's funny. I watched these movies recently with my mother for the first time. She'd never seen them.
Oh, okay.
And like I broke it up into like each movie into like either 2 or 3 parts. And that's kind of fun because my mom can't sit and like watch a movie for that long. And I thought that was kind of a fun experience since these movies are like 3 hours, 4 hours long. Like looking through them and seeing like where's a good place to stop where there's like a lot of dramatic tension to come back, and it's a fun process.
It would be really hard to do for the third movie because there's just so much that goes on in the third movie.
Well, I think what I did for the third movie was we watched right up until the Battle of Pelennor. Then we watched the Battle of Pelennor straight up to like the ending kind of, and then we watched the ending in the third one.
Dang.
I think is what we did.
Well, yeah, because the end of that movie is like an hour.
It's like an hour in itself. Yeah.
So. That's awesome.
So now you guys kind of have an idea of. I haven't played I will say I haven't played like any of the Lord of the Rings video games. I had. That's not true. I actually played my biggest exposure to Lord of the Rings as a kid was probably from Battle for Middle Earth 2. I had that.
That's a banger.
I knew like nothing about the movies, but I knew about that game.
That's funny. You're like, yo, when's the Witch King gonna like throw some ice or something?
I played a little bit of that as a kid. I played a little bit of you remember that like FPS Lord of the Rings game Conquest they made?
Yeah,
it wasn't like an FPS, but it was like a Call of Duty kind of ripoff. Like they were trying to turn it into like a PvP type thing.
Yeah.
I played a little bit of that. I played a little bit of War in the North, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And then I've played a little bit of Shadow of Mordor.
Oh, okay.
And so those are like outside of the movies. That's the extent of my interaction with like extenuous or whatever, like extra Lord of the Rings information or Middle Earth information comes from those.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those don't really have like a lot of lore, and like if there is, it's not canon, and so it's hard. I still, whether or not they're canon or not, I think they're still enjoyable. Like I really liked both the Shadow game, Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. I thought they were really fun, and just seeing more of like Middle Earth just like being brought to life in like movies or games is like really cool to me. Whether or not they're like completely like lore relevant. Like I'm also really excited for the Gollum game coming out, but I played all the Battle for Middle Earth games. I played the Shadow games. I played the Lord of the Rings game that was like on like the GameCube and the PlayStation, where it's like literally just like taking shots from it's just taking shots from the movies, and then like it would like transition from movie scene to in-game cutscene and stuff. Those were super cool. I played
that the one that was like the FF10 ripoff?
No, that one is shoot, I can't remember. This one's more of like just like an RPG, like an action RPG, I guess.
Okay.
Like you like almost like a hack and slash kind of, but like you want to make sure you're not getting hit. Because you have like kind of like a combo bar almost, and like literally I think I remember the cover of it is literally just like Viggo Mortensen's like Aragorn. Like it's just literally Viggo Mortensen. Like it's not like an animation, it's his face. Like and it just like you play like certain key parts of the movies, like you fight the wraiths on Weathertop and like all that type of stuff. But I play a lot of those games. I think they're really good. And I'm just really excited to see more of the world brought to life. And hoping the show is good.
I think we both are, because we already committed to the podcast. I really hope it's good. You know, we commissioned cover art done by our good friend Alex at Alex Beeg, Alex_Beeg boy. I'm gonna say that again at the end, and the link and everything will be in the description, of course. But we commissioned cover art.
It's so awesome.
There's some music in the works, you know, from our good friend Fabio. That's we've committed a little hard to the podcast, so hopefully the show's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be
So
fun to go through, see parts of the world brought to life and being able to, like critique it, like saying what we like, what we don't like, all that type of stuff. Like I know I come off as like liking everything that we've even like talked about, but yeah, some of those games are really bad, but I can still enjoy them for like what they are, right?
Yeah.
But
For sure.
it'll be fun. And then because I know like a lot about like what is like supposed to happen or like what happens in the books, being able to like compare and contrast it and just be like, yeah. Normally this guy's like not alive or like
well, because they're condensing so much of the timeline. The one other thing I want to say about the podcast is I am hoping to get some guests on. I've got a couple people that I've kind of broached the water on them coming on, so we just need to nail down specifics of them. Would not expect anybody on the first 2 episodes because Jason and I are gonna, do those two, the two of us, like right when they come out, and we're gonna start things off. But then I think I've got enough people. We might get a guest pretty much every episode after that, since it's only 8. I got enough people that are interested. I think I can think of at least 4 off the top of my head. So let's transition. So this show, here's what I want to transition into. I want to transition into Jason, since you're the kind of the lore master here. Give us a little background of like what's going on leading into this show, and maybe what we can, like, obviously without spoilers, like what we can loosely expect to see in the show.
Yeah, so basically, the show's only about the Second Age, which, for anyone who's only ever seen the movies, that those movies are in the Third Age. So this is a whole age before. So thousands of years before. The Second Age is like 4,000 years. And what starts the Second Age is actually the fall of Morgoth, who's like the original baddie, right? There's a lot of parallels drawn between him and Satan. Like he's very much like a angel fall from grace type deal. Like he's essentially a god, like lowercase g, and then got like Eru, who's like uppercase G, basically is like, yo, what are you doing, bro? And then honestly, like Morgoth almost completely takes over all of Middle Earth, in conquest of what are called the Silmarils.
And the Silmarillion,
from the Silmarillion, yeah. So they're basically they're these jewels, and they're like how in the movies people see the ring and they're like, oh my god, I need it, but like in an evil way. Those are like so beautiful that like everybody is just like, wow, like in like a non-evil way, I guess, right? Like it might awaken like greed or like something in some people, but like it's not inherently evil, right? So yeah, basically what ends up happening at the end of the First Age is what's called the War of Wrath. And basically it's when Morgoth like launches an assault on like all of it's not like Middle Earth as you know it, it's called Beleriand. So it's a completely different continent that actually ends up being sunk because war is so crazy. Like
they're
called the Valar, which are kind of like the like angels or lowercase g gods. Those, they come across the water and are basically bailing out all of Middle Earth because like so many different kingdoms, like full-on kingdoms of elves and dwarves and men are just being killed, like beaten, drove from their lands. Like it is dire situation. And basically they get the Valar to come and bail them out. And they come and they beat all of Morgoth's people and are basically like, yo, okay, like this whole continent is just destroyed, like completely sunk almost. There's like one like hilltop or whatever that still stands from it. The Second Age is at the very end when Morgoth is defeated and thrown out into what's called like the Void, or like through the doors of night. It's like essentially out of the universe, I guess you could say. Like
into unreality.
Yeah, basically into out of the universe where anything exists, right?
Yeah.
And
Where your Zora's hanging out.
Basically jail. He's just in jail,
Okay.
right? Like
He's
in a
in
void. He's
jail.
in a void jail, right?
Okay.
And then the Valar are like, hey, like elves, come with us back to essentially heaven, and a lot of them do, but certain key figures that even if you've only seen the movies like Galadriel, Elrond, like Galadriel's husband Celebrimbor, Gil-galad, all these characters that are going to be in there in the show, they decide to stay, and like some of their people stay with them, and they create these kingdoms. And basically the beginning of the Second Age is them, rebuilding, and places like Lindon are created, and I can't even think what the name is called right now. Way later, Elrond founds Rivendell, and Galadriel and Celeborn go across the mountains to then. There's so many damn names in this. Lothlorien. Oh my god. So they create Lothlorien, and so you'll see
forest place.
Yeah. So
yeah, okay.
Throughout this time, that's when all of these things happen. And yeah, basically it's Sauron versus men, elves, and dwarves, right? Like I would say like Sauron, if you've only ever seen the movies, Sauron, he's just kind of not really there, right? Like his influence is everywhere. You can see it everywhere. You can feel it. You hear it, all that type of stuff. But you never really see him, right? Whereas in the Second Age, you'll see him. Like he goes places. Like he's in it. He's a part of it. And he's pretty badass.
He's a character, right?
Yeah, like, he's actually pretty badass in the second in the Second Age. So
like that's what everybody says about Lord of the Rings, is that like Sauron isn't really much of a character. He's more of a force.
Yeah, and he just stays in his tower. Like in the books, like they never say he's a flaming eye, right? But like when you're having like a movie where there's this big baddie and he just stays in his tower the whole time, it kind of makes him seem more lame. So if you need
something to visualize,
if he's visualized in a big flaming eye, and like so it seems more like he's bound to the tower, right? Like it makes it a lot more cool. So basically it's the beginning of a lot of a lot of types of people and places that you might be familiar with, like Rivendell and Khazad-dûm, and or like Moria is what it's called later. And then also seeing like where Aragorn's people are from, the Númenóreans, and actual Númenor, and all this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see where they jump to and from, like how much backstory they show of the First Age, because they don't have the rights to it. But I don't know how you can really. I'm sure they could allude to it in certain ways, not just like full on like showing parts of it. In some of the trailers, some people think that there is some stuff that happens even like at the very beginning of the First Age, where like the elves.
And we'll talk about the trailers.
Yeah,
in a little bit.
Where like the elves are traveling from heaven to Middle Earth essentially, and like all this stuff. So, so. It will be cool to see what they do with the timeline, because the Second Age is supposed to be 4,000 years long. It's the longest age that's actually given in numbers. So, as far as the numbers go, so like First Age, like before the First Age, those years are like 1 year is like 20 years. So it's weird, but it's the longest as far as from the First, Second, and Third Age. But yeah, so it'll be cool.
All right, with the kind of foundation laid, what we want to do now is kind of talk about the trailers that have been put out. I was kind of scrambling to put the last few things together before we started recording this, and I actually forgot to rewatch the trailers.
Okay.
And I still haven't seen the newest trailer. So actually, I think what we'll do now is we'll turn this into a segment of the show, my mistake, And I think maybe we'll watch each trailer of the like 3 main ones and then
Okay.
talk about each one.
Okay.
So we'll start with the main teaser. We'll watch it, and obviously I'll cut the part out where we watch it. So if you guys want to pause really quick and go watch the main teaser again, feel free to go do that. And then we're going to talk about that one, and then we'll talk about the San Diego Comic-Con trailer, and we'll talk about the official trailer that just came out. All right, so that first main teaser, I really like that teaser a lot. I think that teaser does a really good job of really what they're trying to do with that teaser is like, we got the visuals, you know?
Yeah.
It's just landscape shot after landscape shot, and just like these beautiful, gorgeous cities, and action sequences that look engaging. Like the horse charge looks very good. It's very trying them kind of reminiscent of like the Rohirrim charge in like Return of the King.
Yeah. Well, I think it also does a good job of introducing you into all the different people that you're gonna see.
Yeah. The different races and the different, because this is a stacked cast. I mean, I think like what 20 plus characters is what they've said. Like across all these different races.
Well, yeah, because you got to show like there's like 2 main area there's like 2 main elven areas, and those have like very like Galadriel, Celeborn, Gil-galad, Elrond. Like these are all like very big characters throughout the entirety of the first, second, and third age. And like that's just the elves. Like you gotta do like gotta go with the dwarves and stuff, and Durin and like Khazad-dûm and all this stuff. And then also you got the men of Numenor, and then you got the men who are like actually in Middle Earth as well. And like there's all this stuff. And then there's like people where like there could be people here. Like there's certain speculation as to they might put some people in Mordor or whatever that are there pretty much just to get killed in the beginning of the show or something,
that like, map that has the Southlands right where Mordor is.
Yeah. So it'll be a lot to cover. And there's what's so cool about, with everything with Tolkien, there's so many cool characters, a lot of really cool names too. Will be a lot easier if you've never like read the books or anything, is putting the faces to the names. I think will help a lot.
They're fun to say names too. Like when he goes Galadriel, I'm like, oh yeah, God, that's fun. That's just a fun name.
It is a good name, yeah.
And I much prefer Galadriel to Galadriel or whatever. Like it's so much more fun to say it with kind of that elf intonation.
Yeah, it's like Quenya or Sindarin, one of the two.
One of the other things this trailer really is getting across is like kind of a tone that things are all right now, but the shadow of the enemy looms over us. Like we're kind of having a good time right now, but shit's about to get really bad. And that I think this trailer does a very good job of capturing that as well. I really like the song that they're singing during the trailer. I really hope that this show does a lot of songs, because I know that's something that people like about the books, is I always hear like there's a song break every like 15 pages or whatever, in Lord of the Rings. So like I think the song behind this trailer was very nice, and I'd like more of that, I think, throughout the show.
Yeah, that's something that, I mean, even from just like the movies and stuff, when you instantly hear like I don't know what the instrument is, but the instrument that's like for the Shire, right? Like whatever, like lute or something they use or something, like it's instantly recognizable that this is the place that you're in, this is the area that you're in, and you can use that in your storytelling to instantly, okay, I know where I am now because of literally what the music is, even if I can only see like a part of a building and it's like blocking the shot as it goes and then sweeps to what I'm actually supposed to see. So yeah, I hope the music is really good. I'm excited for that too.
There were 2 specific shots in this I wanted to ask you about. Obviously there's the Meteor Man thing. I actually want to save that until we've gone through all the trailers, and then we can just, because I think the Meteor Man thing is like the thing that everybody is theorizing about,
Yeah, because it's,
so I think we
very much not in the in the canon.
So we'll kind of talk about that at the end. But I wanted to ask, first of all, I mean, you were talking about like what might they show from the first age. My understanding is that the two trees with the light is a first age thing, and we do get a shot of that.
It's actually not even a first age thing. It's the age of the
Is
trees.
it not? Is that before the first age?
It's what starts the first age. So before the first age is the age of the trees.
So do you think they could show before the first age? But
maybe if they're like no first age, and then they're like, ha, they don't know about the other ages. Yeah, maybe that'd be funny. But basically, there's two trees, and so okay, I kind of got to explain a little bit more to explain this, but basically, Middle Earth is flat.
Okay.
So if you were a flat earther in Middle Earth, you'd actually be correct. And at this
Unlike
point,
our world where you're wrong.
Yeah, and at this point, the sun and moon don't actually exist yet. So there's just two trees, and one of them is like the sun, and one of them is like the moon. And essentially, Morgoth, who's the original big baddie, Sauron is like his second-hand man, right? Him and a spider called Ungoliant, who is like the mother of Shelob and all other big spiders in Middle Earth.
Shelob is the one from Return of the King, right?
Yeah. They destroy the trees and steal the Silmarils at the same time.
Okay.
And basically, like, Ungoliant goes from, like, imagine like a normal size, not a normal size spider, but like a big spider, but like not incredibly large, and then it like drinks the sap from these trees and just becomes friggin' enormous, right?
Okay.
Because it wants to drink the light, and it's kind of like a primordial being, because there's certain characters like Tom Bombadil and Ungoliant who are like kind of just there, right? Like they weren't created by anyone specifically. Like they kind of just exist on their own. A lot of theory with Mongolia is that she's like from the void, like she is like the embodiment of the void, of like entropy
from the prison,
essentially, right? Yeah, she broke out of prison, but and she just wants to devour all the light. But yeah, basically, they could show some stuff. I don't know what the real meaning would be of this. Like, why would you show these trees? Because obviously, the trees are really important as to what happens in the first age, but they aren't necessarily super important as to what happens in the second age. Like, I don't really see a huge connection there, unless they're gonna like put like Celeborn there or Celebrimbor there. I mean, because like I guess if he's seeing the Silmarils or something, because I mean I guess we did kind of bury the lead as well when it comes to like, as far as like what else we're gonna see in this is literally the creations of the Rings of Power.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know. I feel like that maybe I should have said it. I felt like it was kind of obvious, but yeah, you're gonna see Celebrimbor, the creator of the Rings of Power, like the elves, men, dwarves, and then obviously Sauron's gonna make the Ring of Power. So, like the One Ring. So
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure as to why they're showing it. Besides just like world building, right? I don't think that there's going to be some crazy long shot of this. And I feel like maybe it might even be like a flashback or something. Like, I don't know. Like showing, hey, here's the beautiful trees right before they're destroyed or something, right? To show, hey, even if everything looks nice, something might be happening in the shadows or something. Like, that's what I could maybe see them doing. But yeah, what was the other scene that you were wanting to...
The other one that I just thought was interesting that I wanted to bring up is when Galadriel is like, you haven't seen what I've seen, and then we cut to this underwater sequence with all these dead people, and there's like the red light over the ocean. That was I thought that was very striking, and I didn't know if there was significance to that.
There's a couple of theories, whether it's the first like kinslaying, which is the first age, so I again don't know how they would do that. But basically it's the first time an elf ever takes another elf's life. And they steal their boats, and there's like a lot of fires and stuff, and so it could be that, or it could be like from the War of Wrath, which would make a lot more sense to me, right? Like this is like aftermath of the War of Wrath, where it's like, yo, this continent is like underwater, and like so are all these bodies and everything, because it's like completely flooded. Like the entire continent's been sunk. I could see it being something like that. Otherwise, Maybe there's some type of. It could also be something that is like an extreme spoiler that I can't really say.
Yeah. Or it could be something new. But
yeah,
it
or it could be
seemed
something new. Yes.
it seemed very striking and very interesting, and I wondered if there was any.
It's one of two things that would just be like extreme spoilers. Like there's two things I'm thinking of that both have to do with men. So we'll see.
All right, let's move on then to the San Diego Comic-Con trailer.
This one is my favorite one so far.
Okay.
Like, I love this one. The thumbnail for it is the orc who's like evilly laughing.
Yeah.
It looks so good. Like I remember seeing that first one, and a lot of people are pissed off about how like they're making Galadriel be out to be a warrior. I'm gonna take the reins type thing.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is incredibly out of character for her to be like, hey, there's other things going on that we don't know, right? Because that is essentially the role she plays in the third age. So I think that's fine. I also think it's just cool to see like more elven combat, especially if they keep it very similar to how it is in like where it's like, Legolas was just ultimate finesse in the movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope that her fighting style is a lot like that if she is fighting and stuff.
I think we see a little bit of that in that first trailer, the main teaser. We see, I can't think of his name, but the half elf. I think he's a half elf. The one that everybody's upset about, the black elf.
Yeah, I don't remember what his name is because he's a new character.
Yeah. But he kind of does this big flip over this beast that's charging him. And it felt very Legolas.
His stuff definitely does look very finesse. So I wonder if they will keep with that with her as well. Because I feel like she would have like a very elegant fighting style.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like she's literally not only an elf, but like a princess elf, essentially, right? So
yeah.
And then like a queen elf later, right? So yeah, it'll be cool to see her in more of a less passive role, right? Like she was very similar to like how Sauron is in the Third Age, where she's her influence is everywhere as well. Like she literally saves the Fellowship and gives her Nenya, which literally is like the light that he uses to, or not Nenya. Nenya's the ring that she has. I can't remember what it's called. It gives him the flask. I can't even remember what it's freaking called. But anyway, like there's things that she did. If she did not do them, they would be complete things that would happen in the Lord of the Rings would be completely different, right? So, but she just stays in Lothlorien, right? Whereas here, everyone is migrating into what is the Middle Earth that we know from the Third Age, and first she's over by where like the Grey Havens are. And then she travels to where Celebrimbor is, and then eventually goes over and founds Lothlorien and all this stuff. So the idea that like she wouldn't have to like fight and kill dudes, I think maybe is possible if like they clear the way before she goes. But I think there's no way she wouldn't not know how to fight. I think that
she's
that's
like
weird.
The greatest. Like.
There's literally like orcs and like the most evil things like ever conceived in this in this world. You're telling me she doesn't know how to fight? I don't know. I don't really believe it's super. But I also am just glad to see her be more than just like a passive character.
Yeah, this trailer also really continues to like establish that threat, that shadowy threat. I mean. We see the Eye of Sauron as a symbol a lot throughout this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Sauron is name dropped in the trailer, which I think before this trailer came out, I wasn't sure if they were going to do that. I wasn't sure if they were going to leave the Sauron reveal for the show of like, you thought you were watching this show about this one thing, but actually it is related to what like you've seen before.
Like if they were going to wait to speak his name or something.
Yeah. This trailer also has Slim Shady in it, who was falsely reported by all of the internet to be Sauron. We don't know if that's Sauron yet.
Yeah.
That's not. I mean, look, Slim Shady could be Sauron. Okay?
I'm hoping not, but yeah.
I'm hoping not. Probably not. Because he looks like a cultist to me. And so that's another thing I wanted to touch on from this trailer is the cultists that we're starting to see.
Well, the
From my
cultists
understanding
are
of the Second
the
Age, that's a
cultists.
big
I'm pretty sure
thing.
are well. Okay, yeah. So there's like the cultists who are like in Numenor, but then there's also like corrupted men or whatever, right? Like near
Yeah.
Mordor and stuff. But then there's also like orcs. So I think some of these are literally just orcs, right? Like because one thing that you don't ever see in the movies really because Sauron like does it smartly is orcs cannot be out in daylight. Your
Oh,
classic orcs. They can't
yeah.
they're afraid of the light, they're weakened by it, the sunlight, they cannot be out in sunlight, right? So,
Yeah.
if you remember in Return of the King when, Gandalf and Pippin are kind of just like sitting there like lamenting that they're here at this most terrible hour, right?
Yeah.
He's letting out all of this smoke billowing from Mount Doom and stuff and is covering the land in shadow, literally, because
hmm
the orcs cannot march on Minas Tirith during with the light out. They literally could not. So a lot of these like cloaked figures and stuff I think are actually going to be orcs. If you look at like the orc that's like in the premiere shot that's like in the thumbnail, you see that he has very similar clothes as to what these like cultists have on, right? And I think they're literally just orcs that are covering themselves, that are hiding from the sun. You see, like in the scene where some people think it might literally just be Sauron walking past a bunch of these dudes with like hoods and
Yeah,
stuff
with like the
on.
gauntlet and shit.
Yeah, with the gauntlet. Yeah. Basically, I think those are literally just orcs. You can see
Those
in
look
the roof
to me to be orcs.
Yeah, you can see in the roof they kind of just have a bunch of cloth that are like covering. Like it's like essentially just like a big hole that they're in that they just put a bunch of cloth over top of. And so to me that just screams that they're orcs that are just hiding from the sun during the day, and that they're having these slaves that are men, working. And then literally I think they also capture the black elf character. I can't remember. I don't know what his name is.
Yeah, it looks like
I'm excited to learn this, to like find out like these new characters and what their names are,
learn their names and stuff and remember them. And,
right, because like I could read it a million times in some like in some breakdown article or something, but I'm not gonna remember. But like you see, he gets captured by them and he's fighting back. And so that will be really cool. I think the orcs look so freaking good.
They look great. That was the other thing is, this trailer, they've shown us a lot of CGI, and now they're like, but also look at our practical effects on these orcs. And they look incredible.
They look so good. Also, at the very end of the trailer, I feel like it's literally...
Oh, yeah.
It's not supposed to happen.
The Balrog at the end.
Yeah, it's not supposed to happen in this age, but I do like that they're moving it up. Because, so basically... the idea of the Second Age is that, all of these places are being weakened, right? Like, Sauron is weakening men, he's weakening elves, he's literally just destroying them. And the dwarves end up helping and saving what is essentially Rivendell when Sauron ends up attacking. And they lose, like, so many people and stuff. But the Balrog that you see in the Fellowship of the Ring that ends up, killing Gandalf, he's not supposed to awaken until the Third Age. But I do like that
just like the same design too. Yeah.
Right.
In this trailer.
I think that it is invoking it, that it is him, because when you look at the walls, so like the Slim Shady is what everybody's calling, blows on the leaf, right? And the leaf is fine. But as the leaf is falling, if you look at the rocks, there's a lot of silver lines through the rocks. And those look like mithril, which mithril is only really found in Khazad-dûm. So I think the idea is that whoever this character is waking up the Balrog.
The Balrog.
And that the Balrog is going to wake up and, destroy Khazad-dûm in the show. Shit. Yeah, and I think it will add to, the fact that it's like, like men are getting killed, elves are getting killed, dwarves are getting killed. Like it just adds to that.
Everybody's in trouble. Yeah.
Otherwise, if it doesn't get brought into the second age, it happens off camera. It's kind of lame.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
And it's never been depicted in anything, and it probably won't if not in this show, right? It's just like something that happens in the third age that is just
off
something
screen,
that
like,
happens at the very beginning, right? Like it's only really in appendices and stuff like that. So I think it would be really cool if it is in fact Durin's Bane and that's what's happening, because I think that's literally what's being invoked is Durin's Bane and the fact that there's mithril in the walls and stuff.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about with this trailer, actually there was two other things I wanted to ask you about. But I wanted to ask you about that sword that is being formed like out of the shadows that the one person's holding.
It looks like a Morgul blade.
It looks kind of weird. I didn't know if you had anything about that you could expand on.
Yeah, I think what I've seen a lot is people theorizing that it's a Morgul blade.
And is that what the Nazgul wield?
Yeah. So that's what the Nazgul wield. And the idea that the Nazgul are going to be in the show is really cool to me.
Okay.
Obviously, the Nazgul are like the corrupted men. They're previously like kings and great men. And so if there is ring wraiths in this, it'll be really cool.
So I was kind of under the impression from the movies that the Nazgul were the 9 men that got the rings that had then been corrupted. Is that like it was specifically those 9 men? I don't know if that's correct or if this would be implying that there were more Nazgul before that.
I mean, okay, so like the nine rings like do corrupt them, right? So it is the 9 rings. Because like basically it just like bends them to his will, right? Like
to his will.
He dominates. The idea was that, you know, the nine rings of power that were given to men, you know, all the rings that were given to men, elves, and dwarves. The idea was that you would give them to the biggest and best people, right? Like kings, people with tons of power, and then secretly make the one ring and then dominate all their minds at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Basically beating men, elves, and dwarves all at the same time. And so, like the men fall, the elves perceive what is happening and quickly take them off before they can be dominated. And then dwarves, because of how dwarves were made, dwarves were not supposed to exist, but one of the lowercase g gods created them, and like in secret essentially. And then once capital G God figured out what was happening, he's like, you need to kill them. Like, this is not allowed, right? Because what had already happened is Morgoth had already become a bad guy, right? So like,
yeah,
he had already become a bad guy and created orcs and trolls and all this shit in spite of elves and in spite of all these things that he knew were coming, right? And so with that being in mind, the creator, I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head right now. Okay, so his name is Aule. And he creates the dwarves, and there's only 7 of them to start, which is funny, the 7 dwarves. And basically, you know, capital G God, Aru is like, hey, like, why are you doing this without me? You know, I'm the only one who can create life. And he's like, I just wanted to create people to like live in this beautiful world. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't doing that. I was doing this out of impatience of like men and elves being born. And so he did this because orcs and all these terrible things already existed. He did them with making the dwarves very like hardy and resistant to darkness and resistant to evil and all this stuff. And so when the dwarves get the rings of power, they actually aren't fully corrupted. It actually gives them more power, but it just kind of enhances their evil traits like greed and all these type of things.
And they dig too deep and
right, all this type of stuff. So they are still like evil rings, but the dwarves are able to resist them. So yeah, that was a long-winded way as to say yes. I could see them like being like, oh yeah, there could have been more ring wraiths, right?
Just more humans that were corrupted by by Sauron, because
Well,
that's like
those
the rings are a way
exist.
to do that, you know. So maybe
Those exist, but
just
I
that,
think it's
yeah.
the rings are like another level. So like the
Yeah.
rings, it's like he's dominating your soul, right? Like when Frodo slips on the ring and he sees like these ghouls and he's essentially transported into like another world, or like essentially the spirit realm. He's like seeing them in their spirit forms, and they still see him. They like their whole entire soul is dominated rather than being like corrupted. I think it's a bit different, right? Like there's like evil men, and there's like the idea is that orcs came from elves being corrupted, and like when you get really into it, it's really messed up, like crossbred and like what are the mechanics of you actually doing this, like that type of thing. So yeah, it's pretty messed up, and not very you know,
not very second breakfasty of
yeah. But yeah, so I could see them maybe saying, hey, there could have been lesser ring wraiths, I guess. I think that would be lame. I hope not. But yeah.
So the only other thing from this trailer that I picked up on, and I think I picked up on this correctly, I assume the shot with the white tree, I assume that is in a human area, because it reminds me of the white tree of Gondor.
Yep, and that's what it's supposed to invoke for sure.
Cool.
So those trees were given to men by the elves. And basically it's like a token of friendship. And like it basically connects men, elves, and the Valar in Valinor, which is like they're trees from Valinor, right? And so it's like that symbol, and then the white tree in Gondor is a descendant of this tree. And that tree is like the tree in Gondor is like the only surviving tree, and that's why it's such a powerful symbol, and that's why it matters a lot that when Pippin grabs the Palantir, that he sees a vision of the white tree burning, because that is essentially the last tree. It's like if Sauron can defeat them and burn this tree and do this stuff, like he wins, you know, like the connection between men, elves, and the Valar are broken. He's defeated men, he's defeated elves, he's defeated like the Valar. There's nothing from Valinor left. Like he wins, right?
All right, really quickly, I'm going to watch this official trailer because I have not yet seen it. So if anybody wants to pause and watch it as well, do so now. And then we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about the Meteor Man. And then we'll wrap up. All right, that was a very cool trailer. That might be my least favorite of the three. Just because it has a very modern feel to it. The music feels a little like...
It doesn't feel like that it's going to be in the actual show. Like it was made for this trailer for sure.
Yeah, this was definitely the trailer for like the general audience, you know?
Yeah.
Some more incredible landscapes though. I don't know if there was really too much in this that like I latched super onto. They did mention Galadriel's brother is dead, and that's kind of what sets her off on this more warlike lifestyle that we're seeing in these other trailers, which I think is interesting. And I'm excited to see expanded. Galadriel seems very a little rough with her soldiers in this. And then kind of like one of them falls and is like, "Commander, hold on," and they're like, "No, fucking keep going." Like,
yeah, that one definitely does not feel in character. I mean, at the same time, Galadriel is supposed to be one of the only elves ever banned back from Valinor. Like,
and I can see it being like driven by the grief of her lost brother, you know, something that she overcomes over the course of the season, you know, like
for sure, yeah. Well, I believe that brother specifically is supposed to be Finrod. So yeah, he dies much earlier. So I'm not sure that's what I thought was happening as well. Like way back when we first talked about this, obviously before the podcast.
Yeah.
is that was going to be a flashback of Finrod essentially meeting. I don't know if they're just kind of gonna completely retcon him meeting men, or if it's just supposed to be one of her like brothers who doesn't really do as much. Like if it's supposed to be like Angrod or Aignor, I could see that. But if it is Finrod's the one who like literally, you know, the ring that Aragorn wears. It's called the Ring of Barahir. Yeah, Finrod gives that to Barahir, and essentially it's like one of the very first like men and elf like alliances. Essentially, like Finrod is being killed, and his men are being killed by orcs from Morgoth, and then the men come in and save them. So maybe he dies of his wounds. I don't know. Or maybe he dies, like maybe in his dying breath he gives it the ring, or maybe I guess the ring doesn't really matter because it's a third age thing. It would just be a bit weird, but yeah. The one thing that I will say that stands out to me in this, where it makes me like raise an eyebrow as far as like what the canon is Galadriel being in Numenor is super weird to me, and the idea that she is friends.
And Numenor is the land of men, right?
Yes,
or
it's
one of them.
It's an island. That is pretty far out to sea. But yeah, I'm assuming that either on the way there or because like what I could see happening at the beginning of the show, like this one is what really helps me like piece a lot of things together. I feel like while also being my least favorite, is Galadriel is searching for something, right? Whether it's whatever this hidden darkness is or whatnot. And she's going to all these different places, like these icy areas. Some people thought that was like literally the elves coming to Middle Earth for the first time, but I don't believe it is. I think it's just them in the north somewhere. It's just, oh, here's a snowy place. I don't think it really...
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be anything that is actually canon.
Super, like, huge.
Like,
and
known.
Important.
Yeah. So I doubt it'd be anything from that. The only thing I could think of is like literally the very first fortress of Morgoth that ends up being abandoned. It could be that, but basically I think what happened with Galadriel, she's looking for something, so she's going everywhere, and when she's told by Celebrimbor, hey, like put down your sword or whatever, right, it just kind of like makes her really double down, and so she goes to this crazy ice place. She goes and she's trying to sail to maybe go check on and see how men are doing or something, right? Like maybe something that she finds in the ice area makes her believe that men are in danger or something. So then she goes to Numenor, and then that's when like the storm happens, or like she gets attacked by that big serpent, and then she probably washes up in Numenor, and then that's how she meets that's how she meets the queen,
Isildur and everybody.
And yeah. So
definitely if she's trying to like bring the races together, I could see that being another reason of like, hey, I found some really fucked up shit. Like I found like maybe the remnants of some cultists of Sauron, and like I found some really fucked up shit in the north, and I really need to gather, like I need to go see Elrond, and I need to go to fucking Numenor, and like kind of try and bring people together.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe she goes to Elrond and they're like, okay, and because we've seen Elrond in Khazad-dûm. So maybe Elrond's like, all right, I'll go talk to the dwarves. You go talk to men, and we'll try and like, we'll split up and we'll try and start to bring people together. And maybe that's what's happening.
Well, yeah. Well, she, at the beginning of the show, she should be with Gil-galad and Elrond in the very west, which is Lindon, which is where the Greyhavens are, if anyone's familiar with that. So she should be near there, like in that not in the Greyhavens, but in that kingdom, right?
Yeah.
And then she travels with her husband, which the fact that her husband isn't in anything, we literally don't even know like where Celeborn is. Her and Celeborn are supposed to go to then I think it's called Aragian. And that's where Celebrimbor makes his kingdom, and it's actually right across from, very close to Khazad-dûm. And Celebrimbor has like a really cool relationship with dwarves. he's one of the like few elf and dwarf companions, like pretty much in the entire Legendarium. Like really the only other one of note is Legolas and Gimli. And so basically then she'll go there, and I'm assuming, yeah, she'll try and figure out what's happening between like this second area and then in Aragian, and then I'm assuming that feast that they have is in Aragian, because I don't think that they would have a dwarf going all the way to Linden. So I'm assuming that that's where that is, and so maybe Gil-galad comes with them or whatever. One other thing that I think we haven't really talked about at all is the fact that there's hobbits in this. Some people,
Harfoots.
Yeah, they're not hobbits; they're Harfoots. Yeah, I think it's cool. Yeah, the hobbits aren't supposed to have done anything of note yet, and I don't think that they have to. You know what I mean? Like that's the point of hobbits. The point of hobbits is that they're just normal everyday people, and that like as long as these normal everyday people are doing good things, that makes the world a better place, right? And I think that that's what the point of them is going to be. I don't think that there's going to be hobbits fighting orcs and shit. Like I think that it's going to be, hey, here is this palate cleanser from the darkness. You know what I mean? Like, hey, there's no... And then also, from like a marketing and money standpoint, obviously you should have hobbits in a Lord of the Rings thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's what a corporate executive is going to be thinking, right?
Yeah.
From that standpoint...
where's the hobbit? Yeah.
Right. From that standpoint, that also makes sense. But I also think that it will be cool to have essentially hobbits in the show, and for it to be more of like a palate cleanser. And then like also, I don't know if you want to get into it now or if there was something else you want to talk about from this trailer, but like what I'm assuming is either Gandalf.
We'll talk about that in 1 second. So the one thing I'll say about the Harfoots that I'm excited for is like they've been described, their storyline has kind of been described as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, which if people don't know what that is, it's I want to say Hamlet. It's either, I think it's Hamlet. But Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are characters in Hamlet. Yeah. They're characters in Hamlet who like fucking go off at one point and they die. Like they leave the play and they're not seen again. I think they're killed. I think Hamlet has them executed or something. But I can't totally remember. But the point is, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead is a like kind of comedy that was written later. That is, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern survive and come back to the story of Hamlet, but they're never on screen for Hamlet, right? So they're always
like
just
a third party
off.
Perspective.
Yeah, they're like, it's like, here's a scene from Hamlet, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were just off in the corner where you couldn't see them doing something else.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they described the Harfoots, because they're like, yeah, we know that the hobbits aren't supposed to be around at this point, so like they're kind of not, but also like they're kind of doing stuff in like the background, you know? So I'm excited for that as like you said, a palate cleanser. All right, let's talk about Meteor Man. Lots of theories about who this could be. Definitely has to be a wizard in my opinion, especially from what we see in this trailer where they're like bending the trees in at one point.
Yeah, I don't know. That to me it was really weird. It almost kind of felt like you know when like in the movies when Gandalf is like using his powers and the room kind of darkens or something.
Yeah.
It kind of gave me that
Feels
vibe.
like that.
Yeah.
So I have my copium answer for who this is.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to hear that first, or if you want to tell me who you think it is.
Hit me with your crazy tinfoil hat theory, Sean.
This isn't so much crazy tinfoil hat, it's just the thing that would make me happiest.
Okay.
It's Sauron.
I could see
I hope
that,
it's Sauron.
but that just completely breaks everything in Lord of the Rings.
I guess, but I think like I so desperately don't want it to be Gandalf.
Yeah.
That I'm like,
well, and I could see where it's like, oh, the person you least expect it, because it's like people are expecting there to be Anatar and shit.
Yeah.
But with like him being cornered by these beasts and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, also like the whole beginning plot of the Third Age is the Nazgul secretly looking for the One Ring, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he captures Smeagol, and Smeagol tells him, "Hey, it's in the Shire,"
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
And the idea is that he has no idea where the Shire is, and that he doesn't even know like what the hell is a Baggins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then trying to ask Saruman like where they are, and then saying, "Oh, only Gandalf knows," but then not telling him that he actually has Gandalf captured, and then or that like Gandalf was just captured and then just escaped, and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So,
Well, I think that could also
I
I think that could kind of be explained by them saying like these aren't hobbits. They're Harfoots, right? Like this is different. Like this isn't the Shire. This is just people that are like hobbits, but like I think you could explain around that. I do agree that it would be messy.
Yeah.
There's probably not the best. I guess probably the best answer is a random blue wizard that isn't Gandalf.
Yeah,
but
I could see it being one of the blue wizards, which people don't know. There's two blue wizards. If they just made it into one, I think that's fine as well. Because the blue wizards don't actually do anything in the entire Legendarium. Like, it's kind of just like, oh, maybe they did this, maybe they did that. Like, even Tolkien wasn't sure. He was like, maybe they were a force of good, maybe they were a force of evil, not sure. Yeah, if it's not Gandalf, it can't be Saruman for the same reason that I feel like it can't be Sauron.
Yeah, no. Okay. Yeah.
Because he's not supposed to know, and like he doesn't have a relationship with them at all.
And I just don't see why it would be Saruman. Like Gandalf, the only reason I could see is because like somebody from corporate is like, "Hey, where's fucking Ian McKellen?
Where's
like,
Gandalf?
Yeah, like
he's got to say, "You shall not pass."
Yeah, I feel like Christopher Lee, like obviously incredible in that role, but I don't think quite as iconic enough to the point where it'd be like, "Hey, throw him in there," just to be in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if it is Saruman, it doesn't really make sense even from like a full broad character perspective, right? Like the idea that he is like taken in by these Harfoots and essentially probably nursed back to health and like given clothes and like just let into their lives, it wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense for him to then turn evil. You know what I mean? It would seem like a very big turn of character if they do end up showing that. But like at the same time, like Gandalf's not supposed to be there for like thousands of years either. So I'm thinking maybe it's either a blue wizard, which I think would be cool because of the same reasons where we said like they don't like, not even Tolkien knew what they were doing, right?
Yeah.
So the idea, like they did go there first. They're actually not supposed to show up for thousands of years as well, but I'm fine with it if it means that, oh, this is what they were doing, right? Like giving them an idea, oh, this is what they could have done, or something like that, right? I think that would be cool.
And like, let's be real, like we want some fucking wizards in this show,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
At least one, like even if it's that bending canon a bit to bring him in, this bends it the least, and
like
least
the wizard trope comes from Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? Like you gotta have it.
We want a dude that's going to stand in the corner in season 3 when Elrond and, all the when everybody's fucking standing around and there's an old fucking haggard old man in the corner going, yes, well, I think maybe we should do that. You fucking want that. Yeah. We just don't want it to be Gandalf.
I think at the end of the day, I'm fine with it being anybody but Sauron or Saruman. If it's either of them, I'm kind of mad. Unless they give me like a really good explanation as to why, but I wouldn't assume that they would if they did do that.
Dude, what if it's such a great twist at the end, though, that it's Sauron and he does some really fucked up shit to these Harfoots?
That's how goblins
He's like, thank you for...
corrupted.
He's like, yeah. He's like, thanks for nursing me back to
where
health,
the hell is
I'm
the
gonna
ring?
He's like, I'm gonna need all of you guys when I take over the rest of Middle Earth. And they're like, what? And he's like, zoop. And they just all are like mindless zombie monsters in the rest of the show. It's like, oh no. Yeah, I think that about covers it for me, at least. I don't know what else you've got.
I don't know. I think with, obviously it looks like Galadriel is the main character from the trailers.
Yeah.
And I think she will be for the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect her to be the main character throughout the whole show. I would expect her to be throughout the whole show, like to be in it. But I don't know. I want to. What I'm going to go into the show with is like an open mind that I'm not going to try and box them into any type of, it has to be like this, it has to be like that. As long as it's keeping to basically what happens, right?
Yeah.
I think if they completely change what Sauron does, I think that's really weird. But then anything else out of that, I think is fine. Like if they were to switch characters, like, oh, hey, instead of it being this king of men that does this, instead it's a like general of men, so that we can have this thing that happen at the same time as these other things. And like, for example, like Isildur is going to be in the show. Like he's already been cast and everything. He's not even supposed to be. Trailer. He's not even supposed to be born yet. Like like for hundreds and thousands of years, literally. So he's born towards the end of the Third Age, and now like when you think of there's going to be something that they bring up and is brought up always in all of Tolkien's work is that men are mortal and elves are immortal. But these men, the Númenóreans, live to be hundreds of years old. So it's not the same thing. Okay, so they can
last a while.
Yeah, it's not the exact same thing as... And they're Númenóreans, like they're pure... Like there's going to be some that are pureblood Númenóreans, and then there's going to be some like lesser men. But like pureblood Númenóreans... was old as fuck,
and he was descended from Númenor, right?
Right, but he's like descended, and like as... Like they were blessed by like... by capital G God to have long life, right? Like they still have a long life. It just, when you think about it relative to literally never dying of old age, it is completely different. So if there is like some characters that are supposed to be like they age up as it goes on or whatever, and you're like, how the hell is this guy like still alive and he's hundreds of years old if they end up doing something like that? They do end up doing some time jumps, which I could see them doing in between seasons, because I think that's kind of like a perfect time to do that. To like, for it to not completely break your sense of like canon and logic and stuff. These men do live for hundreds of years, so we'll see. I'm fine with them moving events and what people say and what people do around. I think if just the general thing that ends up happening happens, I think that will be fine. And as far as like all of these like new characters, I'm excited because it's something that like I don't want to just go into this show and just see literally what happens in the books and stuff page for page, bar for bar, you know what I mean? Like having these new characters adds in that sense of mystery, and I think some of these characters are supposed to be minor characters, but that show you this is what the average person was like when all this crazy stuff is happening that's completely literal world bending. You know what I mean? The earth is flat and then the earth becomes round. Like that's going to happen in this show. Literally world bending things. So I'm excited, and I'm glad that there's going to be 2 episodes to start so we can talk about it and really dive in. Let us know what you guys think. What was your favorite trailer? What stood out to the most to you guys? And if you think we're stupid and dumb, let us know as well.
Exactly. Let us know.
Obviously, a lot of things I'm going to say throughout this are going to be wrong because I'm not sitting here with all of the information in front of me.
Wait, you don't have the wiki, like every wiki page open on your computer right now?
I do have a wiki page open, but
you need all of them.
If I get something wrong, it's not going to be out of
malice.
I don't have some sinister plot. I'm just a guy who likes Lord of the Rings and can't remember 5 billion pages of text and lore off the top of my head. So bear with me. I'm going to try and add some more flavor and backstory and stuff to this. But feel free to point out when I say some name wrong or something.
And I also want to just throw in, like, I don't know if you've seen over the last day or two, it sounds like critics have started to see the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
And the reactions are like very, very, very high praise. So I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to take those with a grain of salt for sure.
Yeah.
But I also really dislike people who are just outwardly like super negative and nitpicking every single thing that's being done. I think that's pretty cringe. and literally goes against the thing that a lot of people say. Like, I don't know if you saw like in a bunch of the trailers where the comments got disabled.
Yeah.
Where it's like literally a quote where it's like evil can not create anything, it only has the power to destroy type thing. I think that that's literally doing the exact same thing that people are saying. And I get that something like the Lord of the Rings and the Legendarium is something that a lot of people have a huge connection to and that want to see be done. And thankfully through like, you know, like Peter Jackson and stuff and the people at like Weta Workshop and all these people are trying to be as, I can't think of what the term is, but like, obviously this is not being done in the same exact way. And I think it can't be because it's a TV show. And then also it's like when shows like Game of Thrones exist, it's going to have a change to the pop culture. Everything that when Lord of the Rings movies came out, it completely changed pop culture. Same thing not to the same degree, but a lot of things want to be Game of Thrones right now. Even though the last season apparently sucked. I have no idea. I've never watched it. But I think that going into it with an open mind, and obviously there's going to be beautiful visuals. We'll see how the writing is. We'll see what's changed. And I think there will be things that we like that are not canon at all. And so I think it'll be fun to go through, see, talk about. I'm just excited to see this beautiful, beautiful world brought to the screen.
I'm ecstatic as well. This is a great time to be like a fan of fantasy with like we just talked about Game of Thrones. House of the Dragon is airing right now, and I've seen the first episode. Think it's pretty good so far. I'm very excited for this. So, you know, being a fantasy fan, it's good. It's good. It's good for you right now, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start plugging things. Right off the bat, I want to say our cover art was done by our very good friend Alex, who's absolutely incredible. You should go follow them on Twitter.
Juiced.
The link to follow them is going to be in the episode description, but I'm also it's at ALX_BeegBoy, which is BeegBoi. But there will also be a link in the description. You should go follow, even though the music is not actually in this episode, hopefully it will be in an episode soon.
Yeah.
You guys should go follow at Fabio the Iguana. That's you can figure that out at Fabio the Iguana. There's also going to be a link to his Twitter account on in the episode description and whatever else he might want us to throw in there. But Corked, you'll know that as soon as the actual music, which hopefully next week you'll be able to hear that.
Yeah. I guess one other thing we should say is that like this one is very just us. It's a kind of like long-winded, kind of rambly. Don't expect every episode to be like if you made it all the way here. Oh my god! Like you're The next episodes will be bangers, dude. Don't worry about it. But like this one's very long-winded.
This episode was pretty good.
We don't have a lot to even go off of. We have like 5 minutes of footage, and we stretched it out into what it is right now. But I think we did a good job. But expect the next episodes to be a bit more like segmented or have a bit more flow. We kind of were just talking about, you know, get to know us and what we think the show's going to be about, and we're just excited to be nerds with other nerds, you know?
Exactly. Jason, is there anywhere that you'd like to direct people personally?
I mean, depending on what you're listening to this on, you know, we have a whole bunch of other podcasts on our podcast network. If you go to SuperSpikeghettiBros on YouTube, that's where the video for this will be going up, as well as, you know, checking out our other podcasts. Sean is on one called Squid Pro Quo, talking about Squid Games, and that will be covering the next season when that comes out eventually. We have a Kingdom Hearts one, we have a Marvel tier list one, so go check it out if you like the podcast and want more of me and Sean, and and
there's also a Discord, which I will have a link to join in the description as well. That is where definitely jump in there, and like Jason was saying earlier, like there's a channel in there for discussion on both Rings of Power and this podcast specifically. So like what we want to do is every week, you know, you watch the episode, you tell us what you thought about the episode, like the episode of the show, like, you know, episode 1 of Rings of Power or whatever. Tell us what you thought. We probably won't get to talking about like that when we cover the episode, but the week after, because we're going to be recording like less than 24 hours after the episode drops. But
Right.
week after that, when we're covering the next episode, we might start off by reading some of your guys' thoughts on the last episode. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that will be fun. Me personally, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Sean_AFK. I do a ton of podcasts, and everything that I do is kind of just ends up on there. But yeah, like Jason said, Twitter is at SpikeGhetti_Bros for this podcast network, and just on YouTube, SuperSpikeghettiBros. Links for everything, like I said, in the description.
Yeah, if you don't know how to type in SuperSpikeghettiBros. Enjoy your 11 Cs later, and we'll see you for second breakfast.